Hello again, everyone. Welcome for episode 8 of the BOGcast. I am your host, Tyler Wilcox, as always. And today, I think we actually have a really interesting episode. I've got a handful of topics that I find really intriguing that I want to talk about, a bit more unique stuff, not just the same old, recycled off-season talk. But number one, just as always, with kind of an off-season episode. Off-season? Am I from Boston? What the hell? uh, as always with an off-season episode recap type thing, we're going to talk, just going back over how the roster got here, who left, why they left, where they went, and who came in via transfers or freshmen. Most importantly, as far as additions go, since the last episode that I did, the main off-season review, Javon Quinterly left, opened up another scholarship, and then Muhammad Wagi from West Virginia came in and filled that scholarship. And we're going to go over him, spotlight him a bit as a transfer since he didn't get his shine in the main off-season episode, and kind of levy some expectations for where he may be at. After that, going to get into some potential team roles as far as who are guys that are locked in. They're going to be the starters. Who are guys that can maybe flirt with starting. They're not entirely locked in the episode yet, locked into the lineup yet, but they are also guys that will be key bench pieces, bare minimum, guys that are going to be key rotational bench pieces, and then the guys that are probably looking at more reserve roles at this stage, at least in my eyes. Going into a new minutes projection as far as where we are now, with the departure of Javon Quinterly, the addition of Muhammad Wagi, and then going to do some preseason superlatives as far as guys that I think fill certain roles, not just, scores the most, assists the most, rebounds the most, not that, more unique stuff. I actually put a little flair into it, so I think that should be pretty fun. And then a look ahead at the 2024 high school recruiting class. Alabama's got a wide net cast with some really elite prospects, and visits are starting to be lined up now. So I wanted to get into that visit calendar, give you an idea of who's going to be coming in, who's looking at visiting, when they will be on campus, who is thinking about still coming to campus, and just get a feel for the names that you might want to get familiar with as far as the future of Alabama basketball possibly. But without any further ado, number one, just looking at how the roster got here. So looking at departures, looking at returners, and looking at the newcomers, we're gonna lead off with who left. So first departure, Jaden Bradley, freshman point guard. Was a really key contributor last year. Was essentially second or third guard. He transferred to Arizona after this past season. Noah Gurley, another kind of bench contributor. He was graduated, exhausted his eligibility. He's going to be playing overseas now. Javon Quinterly, he was a late grad transfer who ended up at Memphis. He transferred just last month, very late in the process after flirting with the NBA and then decided to come back, flirting with the transfer portal, and then ultimately entering the transfer portal after everyone felt that it was kind of behind him. Dom Welch, a guy who graduated, he was a transfer from St. Bonaventure, just a one and done at Alabama, never really got healthy, never really found his role in the rotation. Charles Bediako, he was an undrafted free agent signed by the San Antonio Spurs. Noah Clowney, he was the 21st pick in the first round by the Brooklyn Nets. I keep wanting to say New Jersey. I will always want to say New Jersey for the Nets. Same way with San Diego Chargers and the Oakland Raiders. I will always call them the New Jersey Nets. And then Brandon Miller, he was the second overall pick in the draft of the Charlotte Hornets. And then the last departure was Namari Burnett. He actually ended up being a grad transfer, took enough courses at Alabama this summer to get the graduation and not have to worry about a waiver from the NCAA, even though I think he would have gotten it, having sat out a year already with his first transfer from Texas Tech to Alabama because of a knee injury. But that's off the table. He graduated, so he'll be immediately eligible for Juwan Howard at Michigan. And I'm actually really excited to see what Namari Burnett can do with hopefully a year of clean health. He hasn't had it at all since entering college, and I really hope for his sake that we get to see what Namari Burnett, a former McDonald's All-American, looks like with a full, clean bill of health. The guys that are returning from last year's team, there's only 4 of them. Mark Sears, the point guard, shooting guard, he is going into his second to last year of eligibility. I believe he still has a COVID year if he wants it. Rylan Griffin, who was a freshman last year, a really promising bench piece from last year's team. Davin Cosby Jr., he was a reclassification freshman that joined midway. And then Nick Pringle, who was kind of that bench big spark plug guy, came in, played a couple minutes, and just was a highlight machine. Alley-oop after alley-oop. It's unreal watching him play above the rim. It is quite fun. But the newcomers to come and fill out the roster with only 4 guys left, you're going to have to take on a lot of newcomers. Kicking it off, Aaron Estrada, a grad transfer from Hofstra. He's in his final year of eligibility. Latrell Wrightsell Jr., he's a transfer from Cal State Fullerton. Grant Nelson, a transfer from North Dakota State. The newest transfer, Muhammad Wagi, he is a transfer from West Virginia. He entered the portal after Huggy decided to get a bit drunky and, fill multiple trash bags with beer and not remember what state he was in. Real fun times. Our other Muhammad, Diabate, he's a freshman. Sam Walters, another freshman. Chris Parker, another freshman. And Jaron Stevenson, rounding off the list. He was a reclassification freshman that Alabama beat out North Carolina for. There's still one scholarship remaining open. At this stage, though, all signs point to it remaining open to potentially be filled by a mid-year reclass or just stay open. One of those two. But looking into... Oh, sorry. I just got a notification on my watch about Shohei. I thought he might have been dealt, but he wasn't. So looking at Muhammad Wagi, our newest transfer addition at Alabama, the guy that I really want to highlight some just because he hasn't, been covered here by me. When I know that personally Muhammad Wagi is dying to hear what I think about him. But I plan on doing a more in-depth analysis for each guy. The closer we get into the season, smaller, little 10-minute episodes, not full-length podcast type deals, just one-offs that I can put here and kind of go a bit more in-depth on each guy and what I think they bring to the table. But just a general overview of Muhammad Wagi, I really think that Nick Pringle is where you start. I mean, look at their career paths. JUCO, all JUCO caliber players 2 years ago. Last year, transferred into a Power 5 program, essentially played limited minutes, barely, into the bench guys, and they were very promising in their action, but also both had foul trouble that limited how much action they could possibly conceivably get. But they play very similar styles of ball. Both are, rebound cleaners, glass eaters. They can really just elevate around the rim. Just freak athletes. Pringle is definitely the crazier athlete. People Nick Pringle's size shouldn't move like Nick Pringle does. It's kind of unreal. But Muhammad Wagi is about as good of an athlete as you'll find as a center in college basketball. A guy that can really hang around the rim. He will contest shots. He gets himself into foul trouble with some of his contest and positioning, but he eats glass and he finishes around the rim very well. But the number one thing that you hear about Muhammad Wagi talking to anyone, I know Joseph Hastings at BOL had an article talking to, I think it was either his coach or his trainer, or maybe it was both. Both guys, really felt there's a legitimate NBA future here for Muhammad Wagi. There really is, and it's not out of the cards with him as an athlete and what he can potentially become. Another thing that I really actually found intriguing reading that article was, I think it was his trainer was talking about the fact that he's putting up shots. They are really trying to develop a jump shot for Muhammad Wagi, and part of the sell for Alabama here for him as a transfer was the fact that, if he's hitting them, above 20-something%, he will be encouraged to step out and take them and really develop his game overall, all around. And I think I'm not anticipating Muhammad Wagi to come out shooting three-pointers this year. Let me get that clear. But I could see it maybe next year if he still is around the program. It's tough to lay out these multi-year plans for guys in college athletics now just because of the way that the transfer portal is. You never know if a guy's going to stay. But theoretically, a second year of Muhammad Wagi in the system, you could potentially look at a potential 3-point shooter there. But this year, I think my expectations for Muhammad Wagi are the same that I have for Nick Pringle, is get the foul trouble under control enough to be reliably dependent for 15 minutes of basketball. If you can do that, that's enough. Because what they both already do around the rim is all that they'll be asked to do. They both set screens very well, and they both, Muhammad Wagi more so, really rebounds very well. And Alabama really needs rebounding after losing Charles Bediako, Noah Gurley, Noah Clowney, Brandon Miller, essentially the entire front court last year, other than Nick Pringle. Alabama really needs to get some rebounding from somewhere, and Muhammad Wagi should bring that. But as long as both him and Nick Pringle are able to be relied upon for 15 minutes of basketball a game, then Alabama's in a really good spot to where that other 10 minutes at the center position can be divvied up amongst a Grant Nelson or a Jaren Stevenson. Or if both guys are not in any foul trouble, you can continue to give Nick Pringle and Muhammad Wagi those extra minutes so long as they're not in foul trouble and at risk of fouling out of the game. So that's where I expect him to be, is the offensive production. I don't expect it to be much. The defensive production, at a 15 to 20 minute role, I don't expect it to be eye-popping, but I believe that there is a role, and he will fill it, as a kind of, he's not ever going to be anything other than the fourth or fifth scoring option when he's on the floor, but he'll get his second chance looks. He gets some pick and roll looks more than likely, and he should be able to clean up in those opportunities. But that's kind of where I see him at as a player. I think it's a really about as good of an addition as Nate Oates could have made at that point in the offseason, with the position that Javon Quinterly's late departure put the staff in and the limited options. I mean, it was going to take something crazy to get a guy like Wagi to come here, just because of the fact that everyone at this stage that has an open scholarship would like a guy like Wagi. And even crazier, I mean, he was committed to Kansas State on his visit in Manhattan. Like, Jerome Tang tweeted the tweet. He quoted, that his dudes, Emaw thing, because we got dudes. And it was about Muhammad Wagi. And he was scheduled a Zoom call to essentially tell Alabama, hey, thanks, but no thanks. I appreciate the effort. And somehow or another, Nate Oates on that Zoom call pulled some absolute gangster shit and just got him on campus somehow. Incredible work. And he committed very soon after. I mean, what a recruiting job. I can't stress that enough. But now looking at things seemingly solidified, as they were seemingly solidified last time I said that, but looking at the 12 guys that are on this roster and the potential roles that I see for each guy, I've only got 3 guys that I feel confident as they are locked into starting. I'm really inclined to include Rylan Griffin in that group, but I'm not quite there yet. Just not quite there, but I think he will be. But the guys that I feel are absolutely locked in: Mark Sears, Aaron Estrada, Grant Nelson. Mark Sears, the only returning starter from last year, will continue to be a returning starter. He's not losing that job. Aaron Estrada, a Conference Player of the Year transferring in, he will be the 2 guard. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And even if he's technically the 1 guard, because Mark Sears played off-ball last year, it'll be very interchangeable in the backcourt. I think it'll always be that way with Latrell Wrightsell, who's more of a combo guard as well. And then Grant Nelson. Grant Nelson's going to start. That's the easiest conclusion you could ever draw. The dude was, a top 5 transfer consensus among everyone. Almost, stayed in the draft last year. Of course he's going to start. And then the potential starters, you have Rylan Griffin, Nick Pringle, Muhammad Wagi, and Jaren Stevenson. Like I said earlier, very inclined to keep Rylan Griffin in as a penciled-in starter, just because of the fact that, let's say, Aaron Estrada has the size to play the 3, right? But if you put Latrell Wrightsell or Rylan Griffin in the starting lineup as well, more so Latrell Wrightsell, you don't have a guard coming off the bench if you're starting Sears, Wrightsell, and Estrada. So it's really tough to find a way that Griffin won't start. But you know what? Honestly, I've talked myself into it. Forget what I said. Rylan Griffin's a locked-in starter. 4 starters are locked in. So the potential starters then become Nick Pringle, Muhammad Wege, and Jaron Stevenson. The way I see it is Wege and Pringle are very similar players. I'd give the edge to Pringle right now just because of the fact that he's more familiar with the system and has had this full offseason to work with everyone in the building. I give him the edge to start right now. He'd be my favorite to be the 5th guy. He'd be the center. But Muhammad Wege, I still list him as a potential starter because I absolutely believe he has the talent to do it. And I believe his role will be very similar to Nick Pringle's, even if, dependent on who's starting, I really see similar production and minutes out of the both of them. And then last but not least, Jaron Stevenson, real wild card pick. I think if Jaron Stevenson starts, it means that Grant Nelson is starting at the 5, which I had this conversation in a previous episode. It really only matters who's starting at the 5 for who's matching up with who. And even then, it doesn't matter all that much the way that Alabama likes to switch and play deep drop. It's not all that important. But Jaron Stevenson, I could see a world where he potentially does the Noah Clowney and comes in and starts at the 4 and kind of really surprises a lot of people by coming in and locking down that role and pushing Grant Nelson to the 5. But I'm not all that confident in it just yet. But then guys I have as they're going to be bench players, but they're going to be key rotational guys, are Latrell Wrightsell and Sam Walters. I think Latrell Wrightsell is going to be a guy that essentially plays starting minutes off of the bench as a guard, just because of where this roster is kind of constructed. A lot of bodies in the front court with the departure of Javon Quinterly, not quite as much in the back court. So I think Latrell Wrightsell will take on essentially starter-level minutes. And then Sam Walters, I think, is a guy that he will be a key piece because of the fact that he can play as a combo forward. He can play a lot of the 3. He can play a lot of the 4. And you can really be versatile with his matchups. And then as far as just guys that I think are depth or may play limited minutes, I have Davin Cosby, Mo Diabate, and Chris Parker. Mo Diabate, I think, was a guy that may have been in the conversation as a rotational piece pre-injury. He should be healthy to start the year. It seemed to be a meniscus thing, just a handful of weeks that he's going to be out, but that's really valuable time for an incoming freshman, getting that offseason work and getting in those workouts. Like, that really is critical, and it's going to put him behind the 8 ball. I do love what Mo Diabate brings to the table as a rebounder, defender, a junkyard dog type. But I think at least early in the year, he's playing much more as a reserve. Chris Parker and Davin Cosby, I have them both listed as depth because in the rotation that I'll get to that I've drawn up, there's kind of like 5 to 10 minutes that they could really fight over. But even then, that's with this rotation that I've drawn up, capping guys at 25 minutes as starters. And we've seen in the past that's not a cap that really holds firm exactly. I mean, Brandon Miller played almost 35 minutes a game last year. So if someone like Grant Nelson or Aaron Estrada or Mark Sears or Rylan Griffin emerges as a dude that he's going to play 30 plus, then those limited minutes that I think Cosby and Parker are already fighting over really shrink. But Chris Parker is another guy that I think could be really dynamic. Maybe not this year as a freshman. I think he's still got a lot of growing to do. I think there was a lot of stagnation in his development, and I think it may be a bit aggressive to expect it to happen this year, but I think next year he really could take a huge step, similar to the Rylan Griffin type trajectory. And then Davin Cosby is another guy that, as much as I think I don't see him playing that much right now, in a Nate Oates offense, if a guy like Davin Cosby, who came in as a, 3-point shooter, Like, that was his billing as a prospect, is that he can be a 3-and-D guy. If he's playing solid defense and he's shooting north of 35% from three, it's going to be tough not to play him in this system. 35% plus from deep is a guy that you really try and find minutes for in this system. So I'm not saying there's no path to playing, and I think that's a key part of this roster as opposed to last year's, is I think where obviously there's not a Brandon Miller on the team this year. I think Grant Nelson and Aaron Estrada and Mark Sears can all kind of split that production. Just being the talented players that they are, they're not the number 2 pick in the draft. None of those three guys are there. That's just not how it is. But the advantage of this roster, in my eyes, is that the end of the bench is much, much stronger than last year's, where Namari Burnett never really got it figured out because of that unclean bill of health. Kind of same thing with Dom Welch. And then Rylan Griffin was very streaky. Jaden Bradley hit a freshman wall at the end. I mean, at the end of the season, the bench for Alabama that was previously a strength for the team really, really diminished, and the starters had to take on much more of a load. I mean, Sears, who even though he wasn't playing great, really had to muscle it out. Javon Quinterly, who really came on late, was playing excellent in March. Brandon Miller, despite being hurt, was taking on his same role. And then you look at the bigs. I mean, Noah Gurley wasn't playing much, and it was a lot of Bediako and Clowney taking on a ton of the minutes. I mean, the bench really shrank for Alabama down the stretch last year, but I think the advantage of this year's team is that I think bare minimum 9 guys deep, very strong 9 guys deep. And when you're looking at who those 9 guys are, only 2 of them are freshmen, and one of them could potentially be a starter, though I think it's a stretch, and the other one is just definitely gonna be a bench piece. And so whenever you're not relying on your freshman to be anything more than potentially your 8th or 9th guy on the bench, then that freshman wall becomes less of a worry or a concern than it was last year for a team like Alabama, and the potential wear and tear that you take over the course of the season that kind of shows up at the end of the year in March, like it did last year for Alabama, is lessened. So moving on to a bit of that minutes projection that I've been talking about. So looking at it, I've got it listed out. Here's my starting lineup. Mark Sears the 1, Estrada at the 2, Griffin at the 3, Nelson at the 4, and as of now, I've got Pringle at the 5. I think that is probably most likely what you see day one. I think there's potential to change. I think there's potential for movement, for someone to surprise, like a Wayne passing up Pringle, or a Stevenson, that really passes up both Pringle and Wayne, and you have to get him more minutes. I think there's potential for that. But in that second unit, I would have Latrell Wrightsell, Sam Walters, Jaron Stevenson, and Muhammad Wayne is the guys that are coming off. And that's essentially the 9 guys that I have locked into the rotation. And the way that I have it stacked up is I've got Sears essentially solely playing the 1, though, like I said before, in this offense, that can be a bit of a non-existent type deal. I think he may guard the opposing team's 1 more often than not, but at the same time, I think offensively, Aaron Estrada is more than capable of running the offense and bringing the ball up the court. Rylan Griffin is capable of doing that. Latrell Wrightsell is capable of doing that. Hell, I think Sam Walters is capable of doing that. I wouldn't let Grant Nelson bring it up the court, but Grant Nelson can be a guy that you run the offense through with the ball in his hand, and you're not necessarily just running him off screens off of the ball. But there's a lot of guys that can take the ball and play make. So Sears playing the 1 where he played the 2 last year isn't as much of a concern as I think some people make it out to be. But I've got him taking 25 minutes straight up there. That's the cap that I've got set for every starter. Like I said, I think there are some guys that will blow past that cap. Would I prefer that cap to stay there and to keep everyone fresh for as long as possible to avoid as much wear and tear as possible? Yeah, but obviously I'm not a coach. I don't get paid to do it. So I'm going to trust whatever the coaches decide is best and what they think guys can handle. I'm not there in the strength and conditioning program. This is just me rambling on. But aside from him at the 1, I've got Aaron Estrada taking 20 minutes at the 2. I've got him taking 5 minutes down at the 1, kind of just spelling Sears, Estrada, and Right Cell. All 3 of them are taking 25 minutes. It's just a matter of keeping 2 of the 3 on the court at all times and just kind of seeing where that combination works. If it's one of those things that, you need Estrada and Sears at the end of the game. So during the, first or second sub, one of Estrada, one of Sears comes out. You keep Right Cell on in a big chunk. That rotation can look really interesting. And I think there could be a real 3-headed monster at the guard position for Alabama. And I think 3 is kind of that. 3 is that magic number for Nate Oates as far as guards go. I think, theoretically having the 4th in Javon Quinterly going into the year before he transferred away would have been an embarrassment of riches. And honestly, it would have created issues of how in the hell do you figure out that rotation. But I think 3 is the magic number. Obviously, you need all 3 of those guys to stay healthy, or you become very concerned kind of looking at the fact that Rylan Griffin would be having to take on minutes more so at the 2 than the 3, which would mean you're counting on, Sam Walters more heavily, or potentially like a Chris Parker. The backcourt needs to stay healthy for Alabama. This is a 12 scholarship roster. There's just not a ton of depth in basketball to begin with. That's just not how the sport works. But I've got essentially that 3-man guard rotation, each taking 25 minutes, but it'll be kind of spelling each other. I think to start, you've got Estrada and Sears out, and to end, you've got Estrada and Sears out. I think those are your starting and closing lineups. And then at the forward spot, at the 3, I've got Rylan Griffin taking 20 minutes there, and I've got him taking 5 minutes at the 2 guard just to help kind of with the spelling and getting those rotations kind of set. I've got him taking 5 minutes there just because of what I just said. I'm just backtracking, sorry. But Griffin, I think, is a guy that can be a really dynamic piece for this offense. We'll get into that when I kind of go over the superlatives. But I think him taking 20 minutes at the 3 is bare minimum what you want to see out of him. Because behind that, I think you've got Sam Walters. I've got slated in taking 15 minutes at the primary reserve spot is the 3. And then Chris Parker taking on 5. The Chris Parker and Cosby are the 2 that I think were coming down in my mind, drawing up this rotation of who takes that. Obviously, I'm not going to draw that up as each guy taking 2.5 minutes. That's just goofy and stupid. But it's one of those things that I think it could be matchup dependent. It also could be something that, if someone's hot, or like I said before, someone takes on a larger role in the 25-minute cap isn't really quite enforced like I'm drawing it up to be, then you're looking at them getting squeezed out of the rotation entirely. But then moving on to the 4 spot, I've got Grant Nelson taking 20 minutes. I've got Jaron Stevenson as his primary backup taking 15. And I've got Sam Walters taking 5, kind of in a spell, playing some small ball 4. I think that's something that he would really succeed at, and I think that's something that would really make this offense dangerous, especially if, it's Grant Nelson taking on a role at the 5, and you go legitimate 5-out offense. It would be really cool to see. And then down at the 5, I've got Nick Pringle starting, taking 20 minutes, Muhammad Wagee taking 15, and then I've got Grant Nelson taking 5, just like I said, in instances where Alabama wants to just spread it, go 5 out, and just really blitz everyone and go up-tempo, high speed, all 5 out. Jordan Bruner type basketball from the 2020-2021 season. So that's the way I see the rotation. I'd actually really love to hear what it is that maybe some of you do agree, what some of you do disagree, as far as where I have those minutes aligned, who I have them assigned to, and why you kind of feel that way. I really like that kind of discussion heading into the season, where you think guys are, who you feel is kind of being underrated or overrated as far as projections and hopes, and how you see it shaking out. Obviously, this early in the summer, None of us have seen anything except for a couple people that have been to practice, but even then, there's summer practices. There's still a lot of time before the season gets underway. We really don't know much. This is just kind of what I think of each guy individually heading into the season and going based upon that. But going into same deal, what I think of everyone heading into the season, got some superlatives to hand out, some preseason superlatives. I love saying superlative. You know the meme where it's Russell Wilson like sitting in his house going, "You got to be unlimited." That's the cadence I like to say it with. Superlative. Mr. Unlimited. Anyway, goofs and hijinks aside, heart and soul. This is the guy that I think is going to be the leader of the team, the guy that, is in the huddle, being the vocal leader. The team goes where he goes. That's Mark Sears. And actually, funnily enough, as I'd finish like writing the script out for this episode, I got like 4 pages of notes that I'm kind of scrolling through behind the camera that you don't see. But as I'd finished it, I went to go pick up some ink for my printer and some lunch. And as I was doing that, Charlie Potter actually released something on the BOL site talking to Mark Sears in an interview, and he was saying how he was focusing on being a leader this year and taking on a bigger role as a leader and had kind of taken, and following in Noah Gurley's footsteps, who was the vocal leader of the team last year. And I think, I nailed that, obviously. It's funny how that worked out. I was proven right as I said it. Way to go, me. Just for that, I think you should subscribe and turn on notifications and send me money. Why not? But moving on to the guy that I think is the X factor, the guy that takes this team from potentially being really good to really great. That's Rylan Griffin. That's the easiest thing that I could have possibly put in there. He's a potentially dynamic player, a guy that I think could potentially be a lottery pick next year. That is how highly I think of Rylan Griffin. But at the same time, if he's just the flashes that he was last year and not the next step, then he's not there. And I think the team is still really good if Rylan Griffin is only flashing and he's, the third option on the court and third, potentially fourth, honestly. If, he's your fourth option as a starter, you still have Grant Nelson, Aaron Estrada, and Mark Sears, who have all proven themselves very capable scorers. So it's not something that's going to really handicap Alabama, but it's something that could elevate Alabama if Rylan Griffin takes that next step and realizes his potential. You could be looking at scoring coming from everywhere on this roster. I mean, not even just scoring. I mean, Rylan Griffin has shown the ability when he remembers that passing is an option on the court. He passes the ball very well. He has incredible court vision. He just has to remember that passing is allowed sometimes. He can become a black hole, but also I think that's something to do with the role that he was playing last year, trying to get his while he can. But moving on from the X Factor, Rylan Griffin, I've got the Jekyll and Hyde. It's not the best superlative. It's not the worst. I think everyone's familiar with the terminology, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. There's going to be some really great showings and some flashes, but there's also going to be some bad moments. And I think that is Chris Parker in his freshman year. I think he will really flash against some of the weaker competition that Alabama plays, heading into, the murderer's row that Alabama's got scheduled in the non-conference slate. Before that, I think there should be some games where this team just runs roughshod through someone and Chris Parker gets a ton of minutes. And I think there will be games where Chris Parker goes nuts and shows you the potential of a 6'7" guard that can handle the ball, get to the rim at will, and flashes the jump shot, and people will be blown away. And he will be a very tantalizing prospect on this roster. There will also be some games where, let's say there's some foul trouble, and Chris Parker has to take on 10 or 15 minutes against some better competition, and he's not ready. It will not look good. I think that's why I've got him as our Jekyll and Hyde type performer this year. I think he will flash hard, and he will also have some really ugly games. And that's okay. He's a freshman. He's an end-of-the-bench, player at this stage. And honestly, That's what you should expect out of a freshman. But moving on to the guy that I have as the Energizer Bunny for the team. Gonna bring energy to the court, gonna bring energy to the stands, gonna bring energy to the fans. It's Nick Pringle. Did I have to say it? I mean, if you've seen Nick Pringle jump, then you get it. He doesn't even have to dunk. If you've just seen Nick Pringle jump, you get it. That dude can fly. Anytime that he throws one down, it will get Coleman going nutso. It will get everyone on the bench going nutso. Like, the bench mob will love it. Nick Pringle will bring energy to the court, offensively and defensively. I mean, even like the little shimmy celebration. I mean, he's a showman. He will constantly be bringing energy to the court, and you always need a guy like that on the team. And then I've got next up Mr. March. For the past couple years, Mr. March for Alabama has been Javon Quinterly. He turns it up when it's winning time. I think this year, that guy is Aaron Estrada. I think is a, last year of college eligibility guy who's been around the game for as long as he has been in plenty of clutch moments, and knows that, this is his last go-round with college basketball, and he wanted to go somewhere where there's the potential to win in March. I think Aaron Estrada is that guy that, I think he'll have a good year. But I think once it becomes late February, early March, into late March, Aaron Estrada finds a different gear. That's my pick for Mr. March this year, the hero of the season. That's Aaron Estrada. I think the fan favorite, that's going to be Grant Nelson. Anytime you have a near 6-footer that can do the unicorn shit that Grant Nelson does, everyone's going to love him. Not to mention he's kind of got like that mustache, just looks like a meth dealer, wears jorts type deal. Like, everyone's going to love Grant Nelson. He will be an absolute fan favorite here. I think he fits in very well with the culture, just being a guy from, the middle of nowhere, North Dakota, coming down to Alabama, full of, small cities, rural areas. Everyone's going to love Grant Nelson. I feel like that's a slam dunk pick. The Crawford. So explaining the Crawford is the guy that I see is the Jamal Crawford type, the second unit, bandit. That's what he does, is he comes in and he just scores in the second unit. He leads the second unit. You don't want him on the first unit because that's not where he's best utilized. He is going to command the second unit. I see that as Latrell Wrightsell. I think he is the guy that he's the first guard off the bench. He's the last guard off the bench, but he is going to really run the show in his time. He's going into, I think, his second to last year of eligibility. I think he's a true senior this year. A guy that's taken on like huge roles at Cal State Fullerton. And I think now it's a chance to step back, be a more efficient player, and really show that he can win ball games. And I think for that reason, I've got him as the Crawford, the guy that's going to be the second unit merchant here. The surprise, Sam Walters. I think Sam Walters is a dude that I think recruiting services underrated because of the fact that he had that slender frame. No one was really sure if he'd be ready to compete in year one at the SEC level physically. I think he is. And I think he's going to surprise a lot of people in this fan base, and especially outside of this fan base, whenever he's a key, rotational piece for this roster. And he will really have some games where he flashes. And Sam Walters, for that reason, I think is the surprise of this year's team. I feel like that was kind of like a slam dunk pick for me. The JYD, the Junkyard Dog. That's going to be Muhammad Wagi. I think, like I said in the review of him as a player, guy that's going to eat boards for breakfast, guy that's going to go after loose balls, physical around the rim. I mean, he's going to make winning plays. He's going to be the Junkyard Dog, kind of like the enforcer type, in my opinion, that's just going to do dirty work. He's going to grease up his elbows. He might throw a few. He will, get his job done. The guy that I have is the late bloomer, Mohamed Diabate. I think will make more and more of an impact in games later and later in the year. Part of that is coming off of an injury early, losing some practice time early. I think he will be a guy that gets comfortable later because of that. But then on top of that, I think once you get into SEC play, the physicality goes up pretty exponentially. The athletes in the SEC, just like everyone says with football, the athletes in the SEC in basketball are different. I mean, there's basketball talent everywhere, but top to bottom, in my opinion, the athletes that are playing basketball in the SEC are different, bar none. So I think whenever you're looking at a guy that can handle that physicality, that can handle that athleticism, that will be more and more valuable as the year goes on in SEC play, and then whenever games slow down in March, get more half court, get more, you've got to make winning plays. Mohamed Diabate is that guy who won't be appreciated as much by the stat sheet, but he'll be appreciated like hell by his teammates and by fans that see what it is that he's doing on the court. And so that's why he's my pick for the late bloomer. I feel like, with the injury, he'll come on later, and just with the way that college basketball works and the way that the physicality increases and the way that the games get more important and slow down and the games get more physical, I think that Mo Diabate excels in that type of role, and I think that he may come on later in the season and really play valuable minutes in those type of situations because of that. And then a guy that I call the bag fries or the pocket money. That's Davin Cosby Jr. And what I mean by that is how when you get some drive through and you eat all your fries and you eat all your food and then you're kind of looking around, you're still a little hungry, but then there's some fries at the bottom of the bag and that makes your day. That is what I think Davin Cosby is we already have enough on this roster. I wouldn't call it an embarrassment of riches, but this is as deep of a roster as they get. And Davin Cosby, any production that he has is just bag fries. It's just the rich getting richer. It is stuff, it's gravy. So he's one of those that I think if Davin Cosby emerges, great. Absolutely. And you're going to love all the production you get from Davin Cosby because you know that it's just extra and it's there and it's great. But at the same time, if you didn't have bag fries, you still had a meal and you're all good. So that's why I've got Davin Cosby as the bag fries. And then the guy that I'm calling the gamble, Jaron Stevenson, is a reclassification freshman. It's always going to be a gamble. I feel like Alabama has a high success rate on those. Most notably, Josh Primo, Kyra Lewis Jr. in the Nate Oates era, both guys who reclassified in the summer as freshmen, came in and actually really excelled as young guys. Kyra Lewis had to stay 2 years because of draft eligibility rules and his age, but Josh Primo was a guy that was a one and done. Both of them became lottery picks. Will Jaron Stevenson fall in line? I don't think he'll be a lottery pick, but maybe he has the same Noah Clowney success as last year, playing that 20-minute per game role. But at the same time, with any reclassification freshman, there's chance that it goes poorly. And so that's the gamble of the year, Jaron Stevenson. And so now that we've gotten everything for this current roster out of the way, already talked about it, I want to actually go ahead and look ahead to potential 2024 recruits, names that you should keep an eye on, who's visiting, guys that are committing soon that Alabama has been connected to, and some other potential names to note. So starting with guys that are committing very soon, Cam Scott is announcing on August the 11th. He's a 5-star shooting guard, consensus 20-something ranked prospect. He's a guy that I think Alabama got involved with a bit later, and he never got a visit to Alabama's schedule despite how much he really proclaimed to want to. But he already, has got his commitment date set for August the 11th. Without ever getting on campus in Tuscaloosa, I don't think that Alabama will be a factor in this decision. I think it'll come down to Oregon or South Carolina. Auburn's another finalist, so is Texas, but I think Auburn is kind of backing off of guards right now in their recruitment, so I don't see it as Auburn either, even though they got a visit. He's actually personally on my board. I've got my board out to 50 players at this stage. He's personally 26th on mine. And then on August the 13th, Aiden Sherrill will be committing. He's a guy that visited Bama last year, a guy that I strongly feel will be committing to the University of Alabama on August the 13th. Personally, he is the 15th ranked prospect on my board. I know that On3 has him ranked as high as 10th. I'm not quite there. I love him as a prospect. I think he's my second highest rated big man in the class, behind Flory Badunga. But as far as a fit for Alabama's system, he's the number one. And number two, as far as fits for Alabama, I'll actually talk about later. But Aiden Sherrill committing on August the 13th. I think it will be Alabama. Word on the street. I'm not going to say that it is true. I'm not going to say that it isn't. I think that it is. But Aiden Sherrill was all but locked up to Alabama for a long, long time. Then the entire coaching staff left as far as assistants. Brian Hodgson, his primary recruiter, left, Antoine Petway, and then Charlie Henry. Hodgson was his, primary recruiter, so that was the biggest one for him. And he opened his recruitment back up a little bit, took a couple more visits. But the way I see it, and the way that it's been told to me, and the way that I really feel it is, and it wasn't a situation where it got wide open again. I think it was something that he wanted to just do his due diligence. I think his family wanted to do their due diligence. And after just a couple other visits and just, doing their homework, they're back in the fold at Alabama. And I think nothing really pulled them away all that much. I think any sort of talk of it being wide open again was more lip service than anything. I think Aiden Sherrill wanted to be here. I think Aiden Sherrill will be here. And he's a guy that I'm really excited about as a prospect. I think he will finish this cycle as a consensus 5-star and is a guy that I think could potentially be a top 10 or so guy in the class. But he is, as I pointed out earlier, this current roster has 12 scholarship players. A 13th is open. Aiden Sherrill is a guy that has been rumored to be a reclassification candidate. Could reclassify midway through the year. Also couldn't. We'll see how it goes. But moving on, those are the only two guys that Alabama's really in on that are scheduled to commit soon. But as far as visits that are lined up, Alabama has a very interesting visit slate going on here. A lot of names have been popping up recently. The first one that will be coming to town is Asa Newell. He will be visiting Tuscaloosa August the 1st through August the 3rd this coming week. On3 has him ranked 8th overall as a prospect. 24/7 has him at 16th. ESPN has him at 14th. Rivals has him at 9th. And personally, on my board, I have him at 7th. I'm really high on Asa Newell, especially in the way that I evaluate looking at potential as a pro in pro-style systems. And then as an Alabama fan, I kind of just evaluate with the Alabama system in mind. So guys that can really spread the floor, get boosted in my rankings. I value floor stretching and shot making really highly, as well as like overall athleticism, switchability, versatility, stuff like that I think is also really highly valued as far as professional ranks. And I think that's what a lot of these high school prospects, that's what they're building their games around, is pro potential, not to be great college players. So that's the way that I like to evaluate the board. But Asa Newell, a guy, like I said, personally very high on. I have him ranked higher than any of the recruiting services do, even if it's just by a tiny smidge. A guy that I think could be a really dynamic 3 or 4. I think he could essentially slot into a Brandon Miller type role, taking on a ton of minutes and being a really big 3 that could also, contribute at the 4 if need be. A guy that I'm really high on. I love his game. Really love his game. The second visit will be Con Newpel. He is a shooting guard, small forward type from Wisconsin. He'll be visiting September the 8th through the 10th. On3 has him at 16th. 24/7 has him at 19th. ESPN has him at 37th. And Rivals has him at 13th. I have him at 14th on my board. And you know what? Actually, while I'm thinking about it, let me preface something real quick. So the industry rankings are a bit harder to update and move around all the time. Mine is very free-flowing because it's just me. I'm not consulting with a ton of other people on my rankings. I'm seeing what I see. I'm looking at the prospects I look at. I'm looking at the evaluations that I can evaluate, looking at live periods, looking at, games that I've seen. And, going and basing my judgment on that. I don't have to meet with a board of individuals, and I can move my rankings, especially like Peach Jam just happened right after that live evaluation period where guys that really impress me can go up my board just like that. Guys that impress people at 24/7 or at On3 or ESPN, they're not going to go up just like that after that weekend because they haven't had a chance to really discuss it. Con Newpel is a guy that has recently really come up my board, and that reflects here. He's a shooter. He is a 3-and-D guy. He can play above the rim, but his money will be made as a shot maker and as a guy that could potentially D up. The defense isn't exactly where you like it to be yet, but the tools are there, and I think the willingness is there. The next visit will be Trey Johnson. He will be visiting on September the 15th. On3 has him ranked second on their board. ESPN, 24/7, and Rivals all have him at 3. I've got him at 2. Combo guard, just incredible scorer. A guy that has really great court vision as well. Defends all right. He'll defend better in college when he has to buy in. So will every high school prospect. That's the thing, is when you're scouting defense in high school players, you have to scout the best moments, essentially, because if a dude doesn't buy in college, he ain't going to play at this level, unless he's just that ridiculous on the offensive end of the floor. But Trey Johnson is a guy that I think is a prototypical NBA guard at this point, and there's a reason that everyone has him as a consensus top 3 prospect. He'll be visiting September the 15th. That is a huge visit for Alabama to have. A guy that will be in the conversation for number 1 player in the class when all's said and done. It's a 3-horse race, in my opinion. Dylan Harper's there. Trey Johnson's there. It may be a bit more than a 3-horse race. It's still too early to call. Behind him, Boogie Flan will be visiting September the 22nd through the 24th. On3 has him 7th. ESPN has him 8th. 24/7 has him 8th. ESPN has him 13th. Rivals has him 6th. I have him 9th. He's probably my favorite pure point guard in this class. He is my favorite pure point guard in this class. I don't know why I said probably about it. Currently, he is. I think he's a bit more wide open right now. St. John's is going to be really one to watch here. I think they would be prepared to really open up anything they have, get the Rick Pitino era started off really hot in St. John's, and it's a really compelling package to offer. Playing in Madison Square Garden, the potential to be the guy that brought St. John's back, playing under Rick Pitino, playing at home. Those are really compelling things. But that's a guy. Boogie's a guy that I think really has legitimate interest in Alabama, and I think this visit could be very huge. Asa Newell, let's go back to all those. Asa Newell, I think right now, Indiana and Georgia were previously the only 2 visits he had. And so obviously those 2 teams have been running out in front a bit more. I believe his brother plays at Georgia right now. Georgia is probably perceived as the favorite in my eyes. If not Indiana, it's really close with them. But he just took a visit to Gonzaga. He'll be taking a visit to Alabama. And then I think Texas right after. So after this batch of visits, you could really see where that gap has kind of been closed. If it has, I think these visits will really provide clarity to the picture for him. Con Newpel, I feel very good about Bama's chances here. I think he really fits into the system. I think he really gets along with Nate Oates, being from that same kind of area in Wisconsin, being a guy that fits in the system, a guy that could really benefit from the kind of family culture that Nate Oates likes to cultivate at Alabama. I think Con Newpel is a guy that I think Alabama could really take the reins in his recruitment after a visit. Trey Johnson, I think right now, perceived to be more Texas, Baylor, and Kentucky, I think right now, than anything else. But, a visit could change things. Alabama's right there in the mix. And then moving on past Boogie Flan, the next date, Jalil Bethea, he'll be visiting October 23rd. He's a guy that On3 has ranked 14th. 24/7 has him ranked 18th. ESPN has him 9th. Rivals has him 15th. I'm a bit higher. I've got him at 11th on my board. is a combo guard. I've, you know, I'm really intrigued by his skill set, his shot making ability, his shooting ability, combined with his court vision. I mean, you say the same thing about a lot of the guards because that's the guard skill set, but I really like Bethea's game. I really do. I think he makes a lot of winning plays. And then behind him, two more guys that have said that they're going to visit, but haven't set up dates yet. Jace Richardson, son of Jason Richardson, on three has him ranked 67th. 24/7 has him at 51st. ESPN has him at 36th. Rivals has him at 49th. I moved him up a lot after Peach Jam. He's at 27th on my board. He had a great showing recently. His, summer evaluation period has gone very well. He's been damn near the best guard on the circuit this summer. And so I've bumped him up my board a good bit to 27. A guy that I think Michigan State will be, tough to be out in his recruitment as a legacy school for his father. Arkansas and Alabama are right there as well, in my opinion. This will be an interesting one. Jace is a guy that I really like. But as you look at this visit slate already, Trey Johnson, Boogie Flan, Jalil Bethea, Jace Richardson, those are four guys that all are, guards. And I think Alabama probably takes two. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where everyone's timeline ends up and where Alabama pushes, where Alabama backs off type deal. But then behind him, Tyler Betsy, who's a combo. Same with Con Nupel, a guy that he's a shooter, guy that can play shooting guard or small forward. On three has him at 15th, 24/7 at 28th, ESPN at 56th, Rivals at 25th. I've got him at 16th. He was a guy that I think started this year around like 100 on a lot of these recruiting service boards and has really shot up. A guy that he shoots the holy hell out of the ball. He defends pretty well, and he gets to the rim pretty well, which are the core principles of playing the three, which I think is eventually his ultimate home. And then guys that I think are potential visitors that have expressed interest in wanting to, but haven't firmly said that they will or haven't set a date yet. Robert Miller III, he's a big man out of Texas. On three has him ranked 33rd. 24/7 has him at 41st. ESPN all the way at 80th. And Rivals at 59th. I've got him at 28th. Like I said, the way that I evaluate is I look from an NBA perspective or from, a wide open type offense perspective, not the Purdue's of the world type deal. But Robert Miller, I think, is a prototypical, big for the future. And I think right now Texas is perceived as a pretty big favorite here. And I think it'll be interesting to see if he still expresses any interest in Alabama after a potential Aiden Sherrill commitment, if they're willing to be a front court duo, or if it's kind of one or the other type deal. That'll be an interesting thing to watch. Darian Reed is the next guy. He is a shooting guard, small forward type, super athletic. Dude flies, gets to the rim at will. The shot is coming along, but the defense and the ability to get to the rim are crazy. On three has him at 24th, 24/7 at 40th, ESPN at 15th, Rivals at 16th. I've got him at 13th. Another guy that he's had a great summer, a really great summer. I mean, he was a dude that just like Tyler Betsy started a lot lower on these boards, and he's just been climbing and climbing and climbing. And then lastly, Billy Richmond, a guy that Alabama has recently gotten on hard, along with a lot of schools. Kentucky and Memphis, I think, are running maybe 1 and 2 here. Alabama at 3. That's where I think it's at, but that's just what I think. That's not at all. Oh, there's Mako in the corner. But Billy Richmond, a guy that on three has him ranked 48th, 24/7 at 37th, ESPN at 20th, Rivals at 37th. I've got him at 21. Another guy that he's a shooting guard, small forward type that has just had a great summer. It feels like that position group has just overall had a great summer on the circuit. And then some other targets worth noting. Liam McNeely, Alabama's in the final group for him, but I'm not sure where exactly Alabama stands. A visit hasn't been set up yet. I'm not sure if it ever will be. And then two in-state guys, LeBaron Fellon and Chase McCarty. LeBaron was a guy that was committed to Auburn, backed off his commitment. Ole Miss seems to be the perceived leader. His primary recruiter at Auburn was Flanagan, Wes Flanagan. He ended up joining Chris Beard's staff at Ole Miss, and that is why LeBaron is perceived to be an Ole Miss lean at this stage. Alabama could really move up this list with a push, but right now I think where Alabama stands is not in a position where they're pushing. I think, like I said, those other 4+ guards that were on the list of guys that have set up visits already are probably just a bit ahead of LeBaron on their board. It'll be interesting to see if another visit gets set up. He's taken an unofficial to Alabama before, but it'll be interesting to see if an official does develop. Chase McCarty, like I said, another in-state guy from the Huntsville area, a wing type. Kansas and Ole Miss are also in it for him. He's taken an unofficial to Alabama as well, but just like LeBaron, the push hasn't been there yet. It will be interesting to see where the rest of the board falls if that push comes. And then lastly, VJ Edgecombe, a recent offer from Alabama, but Bama did watch him a lot during the last live period, and he scores very efficiently. Gets to the rim nearly at will. The jump shot's still developing. He defends very well, and he's an incredible athlete, but a very, very efficient scorer. It will be interesting to see where things fall for VJ Edgecombe, but he's a guy that I feel is worth noting for Alabama. And that wraps up the episode. I think we're just in an hour here before I edit and maybe cut some things down, but I appreciate you for hanging around with me for this whole time. If you did, please, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about the roster, about recruiting, about, why I have certain guys slotted in where they are in minutes, how I have the rotation drawn up, please feel free, comment below, let me know. I'd love to hear the discussion. And once again, thank you for, the support, for hanging out with me. If you don't mind, maybe leaving a like, maybe subscribing if you aren't already. That would be great. And I look forward to being able to talk more ball with everyone here on this channel. And even though this is the BOGcast, and, BOG stands for basketball, not football, I'm kind of catching the football bug again. I can't lie. We're getting very close to the football season starting, and I think I might make a football episode. I probably will. I'm sorry for those that are going to hate me for that. I apologize to my BOG brethren. But with that being said, I'll see y'all next time. Have a great one.